J. Cole's new album, The Fall Off, is dropping this week, so we wanted to share some theories about the album and predictions before we get to it on Friday. And of course, speaking of Friday, we're going to be doing our first live album reaction with the entire community. I think it's going to be one of our craziest reactions of all time. If you want to join us for it, link in the pinned comment. It's going to be a crazy night. And if you guys are new here, smash the subscribe button because we're doing a bunch of Fall Off content, especially after the album does come out.
Indeed.
What an exciting time to be alive, bro. So let's get started with some theories. I want to jump right into this.
Yeah, so Lou decided to put on his aluminum tinfoil hat, and he called me. He's like, Ant, bro, I have some serious theories for you. So I said, okay, bro, if you think they're worthy, bring them to the studio. And so he did. So I have no idea what's going on. I am familiar, though, with like a bunch of theories that are surfacing. Yeah. I've done extensive coverage on the album so far. I understand what the fall off is probably going to be like. But Lou, I don't want to hear any fucking Halo reaches today.
Listen, you call me out.
I don't want any reaches,
bro. If you hear the reaches, call me out. If you think they're valid, fucking let me know.
Yeah,
man.
But I know you like this shit, so I know you're going to come well prepared today.
Absolutely.
You got something for me, bro.
Okay, so theory number one.
Let's do this.
I think this is the obvious one. There was a lot of conversation about the It's a Boy theory. We have a video that's out on it. We kind of anticipated that maybe it was going to come out on his birthday as a separate project before the Fall Off drops.
Indeed.
Now that theory has shifted to something else. And that's where we're starting. The theory that It's a Boy is going to be disc 1 on the Fall Off, and the Fall Off is going to be disc 2 on that album, or maybe it'll have a different title. But starting off with a disc 1 for It's a Boy, this is probably going to be about J. Cole's birth and his origin story. You're probably going to get a lot of storytelling cuts from him, and you're probably going to get that feeling that you got with Wet Dreams, where it's like, let me take y'all back, man,
that
like
feeling
I do
I got
so
with
well.
Wet Dreams? What feeling did I get when I listened to Wet Dreams?
Okay, bro.
What are we talking
Point
about?
being, Wet Dreams is a song that he had made 10 years before it actually came out. And again, like, it was him revisiting his youth. And I think he's going to do that with a lot of tracks on here. Also, think about the song that was meant to be the intro to the Fall Off at one point, 1985. What does he do on that song? He's reminiscing over his youth, and he's drawing parallels from his own young life to the young lives of rappers in the game in 2018.
Isn't 1985 also his birth year?
It is his birth year, absolutely.
So that could play in, let's say, to the theory as well.
And I also think that It's a Boy is going to be Cole's love letter to hip-hop, right? Because when you look at the mixtape that he came out with, Birthday Blizzard 26, you'll hear him rap over tracks like The Victory Beat, where he's rapping and flowing like Biggie, or him rapping like Jay-Z over the Can I Live beat. And I think that you're going to have him maybe rapping like some of his heroes growing up, because I think that whole disc 1 is going to be about like his fandom and his love for the genre.
Yeah.
To add on to that too, I think that when you go to the ending of this 2-track 2, it's pretty much confirmed that he's rapping over a sample of Drop a Gem on Him by Mobb Deep. And that wasn't on the mixtape. I think it's almost certain it's going to be on It's a Boy, and you're probably going to get other tracks like that where, again, there's serious hip-hop references, there's crazy samples and shit that just applies to his childhood and the music that he grew up loving.
Okay,
so
like
you're
this theory.
Following so far?
Yes, I am. But I also want to chime in on this, right? Because he just released a blog article saying how, and this played into the dual cover and why he decided to change the cover, and he said, based on the events that transpired back in 2024, he decided to make this a double disc. At least that's what he alluded to. And apparently he had it ready for like 7 years, and like he was ready to go. Like there was an original track list. So how do you think like It's a Boy fits into that theory now? Because he's saying basically 2024 and on, like I basically almost cooked up a whole different album. But It's a Boy was being alluded to back in 2020. So how do those timelines make sense to you?
So I'm going to get to the disc 2, the Fall Off, where I think the 2024 and the more recent recorded material is going to play into the album. But I think It's a Boy is probably going to feature some of the older recordings and like the original vision for the Fall Off. Another cool Easter egg, The Storm is a song that he spoke about on that blog as the first song that he was ever proud of. One of the first songs he made when he was 15 years old, where he actually wanted to record it in a professional studio. And what's interesting is that you can clearly hear him rapping like Nas and Eminem, like a mixture of those two guys on that song. Also on the song's hook, he says, what goes around comes around, what goes up must come down, which kind of sounds prophetic now in the context of the Fall Off. I also think that Cole is going to be telling us distinct stories from 1985 to 2015. So the first 30 years of his life and mostly his boyhood. Why up until 2015? I think the reason for that is that when you listen to the Inevitable podcast, Cole releases a bunch of different episodes, but he ends off with the last 2 episodes being the 2014 Forest Hills Drive episodes. And he literally ends off that first season at the point where he came up with the concept for the fall off. So I feel like everything that is on It's a Boy is going to be what was conceived before he got the idea for the fall off in 2015. And then this too, the fall off, is going to be based on the events that happened in 2024, which re-inspired him creatively. And he said this exactly. 2 years ago, after the events that still feed the algorithm to this day, I became incredibly re-inspired, and the album slowly blossomed into a double disc as a concept expanded. So if the events inspire him to make a second disc, it's probably because, again, he's making newly recorded material be featured on that second disc. And I feel like his goal is going to be to dispel the narrative that he fell off.
I don't think he's going to dispel it. I think he's going to play into it, and he's going to make you understand why that whole narrative of him falling off or any other rapper falling off is kind of bullshit. And you got that within the trailer, right? Because you had gotten that excerpt from that comedian that had gotten no traction before, like that. What was his name? Dan what?
Dan Harumi, I believe.
Yes, it was Dan Harumi.
Yeah.
And that video was up on YouTube, and before this whole thing ended up happening with the fall off, only had like 300 views, right? And within that excerpt, you hear it within the fall off trailer. Dan is speaking about how, you know, people often speak about the fall off for different artists, for different, let's say, actors, you know, people that play in the entertainment industry, but it's inevitable, right? You've had your course, you've had your cycle in the entertainment industry, and now it's time to move on. And that's not a bad thing, but people look at it in a bad light. So with that being said, Lou, do you feel like It's a Boy kind of maybe shifted when J. Cole realized, hey, I can make a double disc album out of this? Like, that's what I'm kind of asking.
I don't think so. I think again, like what he said shifted was him expanding the album after the events of 2024. What I'm trying to say is that I think that this whole narrative that started after he apologized of him falling off played perfectly into the concept.
Yes, it does.
Like,
okay,
I think that's why I think he's going to try to dispel that narrative with his ability in the craft, with the art that he's bringing to the table on disc 2 and disc 1.
I see your point. What I guess I'm trying to ask you is, do you think that the original Fall Off track list is now shifted into like the It's a Boy disc 1, and now like the Fall Off disc 2 is going to be like all new material? I'm asking you, do you think he shifted the track list and now there's 2 discs at play?
100%, yeah.
Okay.
I definitely think disc 2 is probably going to be the more recent shit that you get, and I feel like it's going to play out sort of like a goodbye letter to hip-hop. Like, first you have the love letter, the beginnings, then you're probably going to have the goodbye letter, and it's probably going to follow some themes that you got on the mixtape where he's rapping about the state of the game, how fraudulent streams are, and how there's a bunch of rappers that seem to be reaching a certain echelon, but they can't really have the star power that
I think that's
other
a great
rappers
theory, right?
did.
Because you have a bunch of lyrics and also excerpts from the Inevitables podcast, that play into that. My thing is like, that's interesting, right? Because if It's a Boy is now supposed to be like the original Fall Off track list, right? And now we have to make a whole other Fall Off album for this too. That's crazy, bro. How you can make just a whole other album after 2024. Think about it. Like, that's pretty recent. We're talking about like the 2-year mark in April. So you make a whole other album in a year and a half? That's pretty ridiculous.
And again, it's like he was rapping on songs like Procrastination and Heaven's EP about like, yo, now that I eluded poverty, like, how am I supposed to have the same hunger that I once did? Like, it almost felt like he needed a reason to tap back into the old version of himself. And he was given that reason, bro. Like, finally his back is against the wall and he literally has something to prove to the world. So I feel like that's definitely going to spark a bunch of ideas that lead into new songs,
okay,
right?
so you also think that the It's a Boy version is probably going to be older song concepts that he maybe has been working on since 2015 and on, right?
Sure.
And like, that's going to be all the older material that was supposed to be the original Fall Off track.
1000%.
Okay.
Another prediction for this the second half of the album, I think that he's going to design this album to loop so that when it ends, it could be played in reverse from ending back to beginning. kind of symbolizing his entire life and career as one
That's a great
infinite
theory.
cycle. I think this idea already exists in the music because this track 2 literally tells Cole's life story backwards from end to beginning. That feels like the thesis for the entire project. So the boy becomes a man, the man reflects on the fall off, and the story loops back to where it all started. We'll see if that ends up happening. Theory number 2, though.
Okay, let's do this.
This is interesting. This is a theory that came to us from a good friend of ours that we always chop it up with about hip-hop. He's probably watching this right now. Shout out to you, bro. But he believes that J. Cole was inspired by Biggie for the mixtape and maybe for the fall off itself. So let me break it down. When you look at the 4 freestyles dropped on Birthday Blizzard 26, all 4 were New York beats. All 4 were Bad Boy beats. And when Cole raps, when I write, it's like I'm guided by the angels, I noticed. It's like the ghost of Christopher Wallace had came in and wrote it. That's on the first freestyle, Bronx Zoo freestyle.
Yes.
And he's delivering the flow similar to Biggie. Also, Biggie dropped a double album as his last album, and it was called Life After Death. The Fall Off, we know for sure now, is a double album. Cole also experiences life after death from a narrative perspective on Disc 2, Track 2. And of course, Cole raps on Bronx Zoo Freestyle, just when you thought that your boy was completely dead, boom, walked out the tomb like Matthew said that Jesus did. So I feel like we were just saying, Cole has gained motivation and fuel by people putting dirt in his name, and now it feels like this is going to be a rebirth for him.
Yeah, and
right?
we've seen artists do concept albums like this recently. For example, I think about Dawn FM with The Weeknd, where you have him passing on to the afterlife, and the track list is sequenced in a way where The Weeknd is obviously passing on, and then you have Jim Carrey that's doing the narration. So let me ask you this. Do you think there's going to be narration within this album? Because that's another prediction of mine. I think there's going to be narration within the album that guides you throughout the entire process, and it hasn't been done yet within a J. Cole album.
Not a bad theory. I mean, this tape was just hosted by DJ Clue. You had the off-season that kind of had some narration by Cameron. But
I'm not talking like loose, like artists come on, like hype man type of stuff. I'm talking about a guide. Think about maybe like Morgan Freeman, for example, in Heroes and Villains, or think about, let's say, Jim Carrey again in Dawn FM, where they actually play into the narrative of the album and they guide you through the sequencing of it.
Life After Death also had the narration, right?
Yes,
previously on Ready to Die, like the opening track. So it could very well be.
Okay, let me ask you.
Yeah, go for it.
One more question about the narration, because this was another, prediction for me. Who do you think would be fitting for this, bro? Who would be
fitting for the narration?
Because Cole's like a student of the game, and he's often brought in like references from old comedians, bro. And he's obviously a big sports fan. Like, I feel like the options are kind of endless at this point. So where do you think he goes with that?
No idea, bro. Maybe Cannabis, or again a rapper that he grew up loving that would want to do it. You, any ideas come to mind?
I'm not sure, but I think, remember we were talking about how maybe he's gonna grab like all kinds of different rappers that have so-called fallen off. That was a narrative and sort of a story that was circulating around the album previously in different news stories. Maybe he's going to grab someone that maybe had like a big fall off, that people labeled him as like maybe this one and done rapper that had a crazy career and now no one talks about, come in and maybe do some narration.
Maybe.
For him.
That
would be super crazy for the album.
Yeah, back to the Biggie connection. This album is obviously going to be about the Alpha and the Omega, right? The beginning and the end. Like Jesus said in the Bible, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. The first Ready to Die album by Biggie has the baby on the cover.
Yes.
In this case, It's a Boy would be disc 1. Disc 2, The Fall Off, which is the figurative death of Cole. I think what's also interesting is that on Disc 2, Track 2, the music video, you see Jermaine was here written on the wall, and he raps first name Jermaine, and it's goated. I feel like Cole is making this album to impress Jermaine, bro. That little kid who fell in love with hip-hop and dreamed of becoming a rap king one day. And what's also interesting is that, again, everything ties back to the beginning, right? We spoke about how he had rapped over the Victory beat back in 2004 when he was still a college freshman.
The video's up on our IG right now if you guys want to go see it.
And now over 20 years later, he's rapping over the same beat, almost like to test himself and be like, how much has my skill set evolved? Let me put it side by side.
And you know what? He's done this before, right? Remember back on, I believe it was on the come up and the warm up, where he had done the Dead Presidents beats twice because he felt like the first time he did it, he didn't do it justice. So, okay, let's go back in and let's deliver a better version of this. So I could see that happening maybe for other tracks in his catalog, right?
Yes.
Where maybe he feels like, wow, I didn't do this beat justice, and now's my time to redeem myself and do it once again, maybe 10, 15 years later.
And I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if, like, on that It's a Boy first disc towards the beginning of the track list, if he puts like an old freestyle of his that, like, maybe we've never heard before, like
sort of like an
15-year-old Cole, like, yeah, a taste of that 15-year-old Cole to show us the work that he's put in since, which could be really interesting. But okay, this is now
the Halo Reach,
the third theory, which I think you're gonna call a Halo Reach. This is like the longest theory, the one that I worked the hardest on, but you let me know. This one
okay,
was a lot of research.
Okay, let's do this, all right? Where did you get the research from? How did you come up with the theory before you actually dive into it? And you personally, before you explain it to me and the audience, how much merit do you think this actually has?
I think that has a good amount of merit. And I think it's going to be in the sense of, like, he might not spell it out on the album, but it's going to play out in the way that I compare it to what I compare it to.
Okay, let's do it.
For starters, I started thinking about this theory when I heard the lyric on Bronx Zoo Freestyle. I'm going to pull it up right now. Where is it?
Okay, Blue's bringing out the lyrics.
Here we go.
Doing all of this. Okay, let's see.
So the lyric was, y'all toddlers to me, stop bothering me. Young Simba, some guys threw some hate my way, but only thing they should say is, Cole, you like a father to me. So it got me thinking about the whole Simba series, which he's had in his catalog literally since the beginning, since the come up. That's a song series that he's had. And of course, Simba is the main protagonist in the Lion King Disney movie from 1994. And by the way, spoiler alerts for anyone who hasn't watched The Lion King. We're going to be going into the plot of the movie a little bit. So spoiler alert there. So anyways, start from the beginning. First song of this series is called Simba. Came out on the come up in 2007. And in the song, he compares himself to being the Jesus of hip-hop, being the savior of the game.
Yes.
He ends the song by saying, word in the streets is I'm the prince, check the splendor, and I can't wait to be the king, young Simba. So early on, Cole viewed himself as someone that was destined to become the king of the rap game at some point. And at this point in his career, it's all he was focused on, right?
Yes.
That's what it seemed like. Next song in the series appears on the warm-up, and it's called Grown Simba. Now he's more confident. He believes that a deal's coming, that plaques are coming, and he's getting closer to that ultimate goal of becoming a king. And that's exactly what happened, bro. In 2009, the same year the song dropped, he signs the deal with Jay-Z. The third song in the series was released in 2011, before dropping his debut album, where he had a lot to prove. And he focused on Jay-Z here and indirectly compares him to Mustafa, who's the father of Simba in the movie. And at the beginning of this song, you hear audio from the movie of Mustafa speaking to Simba. And what's interesting is that there's lines on here like, because this is the summer that our life changed. Hov asked me, is you ready for it? I looked around at all his nice things, told him, you know it. Kind of showing that, like, he's ready to take that next step into becoming a king. Mm-hmm. Now let's go into the Lion King plot, bro, because I feel like there's a lot of similarities in Cole's career compared to what happens in the Lion King plot. So, in the movie, Simba is exiled from his kingdom after his father, Mustafa, is murdered by his uncle, Scar.
Yes.
Who wants the throne, right? Scar convinces Simba that his father's death is his own fault and tells him to leave and never return. Now, as Simba grows up, he has to decide, does he run from his past or does he return home to confront Scar, his uncle, and reclaim his place as the king? In the movie, Nala, who's Simba's lover, tells Simba he has to come back because Scar's reign has caused a food drought. For Cole, there is a drought in the game, right? There's a drought of elite rapping. There's a drought of real substance in hip-hop.
Yes.
He feels like he needs to return home, back to his childhood home in Fayetteville, in order to reclaim his place as a king and save hip-hop. Back to where it all began like we saw on the cover. Not for validation this time, but to connect with that original hunger, that desperation to blow up, and the intense work that he put in to be great in the first place. And he's not doing it for any bloodthirsty hyenas or any fans that could switch up at any moment. He's doing it to prove it to himself that he can rap as good as the rap kings that he grew up listening to. Now, what's interesting is that Scar, who's the main villain Lion King, I think for Cole represents self-doubt, doubt from hip-hop fans, and anyone that's kind of counted him out and said that he's fallen off. He wants to shatter the perception and become the king in his own eyes, and he won't achieve it by beating someone in a rap battle, but by leading with skill, like he raps about on 99 Build Freestyle. Now, Mustafa becomes king by killing his brother. Drake and Kendrick both tried to be hailed king after attempting to kill their brother, metaphorically. And Simba has a line in the movie where he says, "I'm not a murderer," which obviously mirrors Cole's decision to step away and apologize. Now, to go even deeper, what's the main message of The Lion King? Do you remember?
The main message of The Lion King, bro?
The way the movie kind of starts and ends. One of the famous lines.
I'll let you take it away, bro. Go
Circle of life, right?
Yes.
Now, this ties into the fall off because at the start of the movie, Mustafa explains the circle of life to Simba, his son. And he says, "A king's time as ruler rises and falls like the sun." And the movie ends with Simba and Nala's cub, their baby, being shown to the kingdom. And you get a first look at the next king. I think there's going to be, this is like the real theory. I think there's going to be a passing of the baton moment towards the end of the fall off track list where Cole passes the baton to Jid to become the next king. Also, to add on to this, don't forget that Cole once rapped on Off D's, "Jid the closest thing to me." More evidence, this is something that Cole wanted from Jay-Z himself, who he viewed as the king. Back in 2009, Cole has a feature on Wale's song Beautiful Bliss, and he raps, "I'm definitely in a class of my own, at dinner with Hove, hoping that he passed the baton." Now look at the symmetry of it, right? Jid is the most promising rapper signed to Cole, just like Cole was to Jay-Z. Also, let's not forget that Cole jumped back into the Simba persona in 2020 on the song Lion King on Ice, a song that was supposed to be on the fall off at one point. So I think he definitely wants to revisit that persona, and he also raps on that song. "I need you all to see every part of me, every scar, every artery, every story that I can recall, and then I can fall." I think J. Cole's going to have a song on the album that is a continuation of the Simba series, and I think we're going to see him reclaim his spot at the top of the throne while flexing his ability, and I think that that's going to be a big narrative after this album releases, is like, oh shit, can we consider him number one even after all that he did? Because right now it's undeniable, bro. Like, he's earned this title through the art, through his rapping, the pen, the strength of the fall off as a complete body of work. So thrown off the mountain, climbing his way back up and bowing out while he's still on top. And that's the circle of life, right? The kings can't last forever. J. Cole can't last forever.
But you know what? In all of these theories that you've explained to me in this episode, they all have like this aligning message throughout everything, right? Whether you want to bring in the Lion King theory or his circle of life and his career, like they all follow such a similar suit. And you mentioned something interesting where you said Cole's career and his life as a whole, based to his lyrics and what we know through interview excerpts and even, you know, the Inevitables podcast, where he's literally playing Simba at this point. And I think that he's even said it within these freestyles himself, like he's going to come back and reclaim the throne for himself, and he's going to end this drought. I like that third theory, actually.
You like the third one?
Yeah, because I think that's going to be like a full circle moment for him, because if you guys are huge fans of Cole, like, you know how important that Simba metaphor is for him, bro, and the way that he saw himself as an underdog in the game at one point, and how he had to claw and scratch his way up literally to the top, bro. Like, there was a point where people didn't even know if this guy could make a hit. And look, he's one of the biggest rappers in the world right now. So I like all of these theories. I think the third one is fucking sick.
What about Jid getting the baton? Could you see that happening? Do you think like that's gonna play into like our predictions now of like features? Before we get into that though, I feel like with the Simba theory, I was rewatching the beginning of the movie. I just love that line, bro, and like the representation of like, yo, like every king has their day. Like the fall off is inevitable, even in the fucking Lion King movie, bro.
You know what? I like it because when you look at this full circle moment for Cole, it speaks into the narrative of the album, but him passing on the baton, I think he already did it, bro. I think he already did it with Jid. So I think maybe he does it figuratively here, where it's like, okay, I'm literally going to make a song concept with Jid where we're rapping, we're barring up. Like, it's going to follow this theme, and maybe we get together and we do this. We also know that Cole and Jid have so much shit tucked, bro. Jid last year spoke about the possibility of even seeing a collaboration album between them two, because they have at least like 15 joints, as Jid said, that are ready to go, bro, and they're absolutely fucking fire. So who knows? Maybe we see one of them right there.
So let's make our predictions. Let's start off with the features. Is Jid a lock on this album? Because I think he absolutely is.
I think he's an absolute lock on this album. I feel like maybe it comes on the fall off section.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a prediction of mine. I think you see most of the features on this album.
On the second half?
Maybe on the second half of this, because it's going to play more into the narrative. And I think he's going to be intentional with the sequencing of the features, where they're each going to play narratively into the track list and into where it goes. You and I often have conversations about feature lists in modern hip hop where everything also feels just very like, okay, plug and play.
Government mandated.
Exactly. I think that he's also going to try to combat that narrative in the way that he places these features. I think you're also going to have out-of-pocket features, and one person that I think might make this album that you mentioned is actually Cannabis, because when you go back to that blog article, he speaks about how he was literally like stalking different blogs and sources just to see when Cannabis would drop his newest tape or any release information that you would have on that rapper. Like, I think he's intentional with that. So I feel like maybe he makes an entrance, maybe narration, maybe a little excerpt. Also, I think female vocalists might be prominent within this track.
Ari Lennox, maybe?
We'll see, because I believe that
she's no longer with Dreamville, yeah.
Yeah, and she had a bit of a falling out, and she spoke about how her situation was maybe a bit messy with them, so I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But a female vocalist that I would love to hear, like a Cleo Soul, bro. Like someone of that nature, or even a Temp, someone that could deliver these beautiful, bright vocals and could come in for some of the hooks maybe throughout this album.
But yeah, going back to, I think you're spot on in terms of saying that like every feature is going to be intentional. I think that if there are features sprinkled out throughout both discs, I feel like disc 1 would probably be like his rap heroes, the guys that he grew up loving. So maybe an Eminem, a Jay-Z, a Nas, the guys that he had their lyrics up on his wall in his bedroom. Cannabis, maybe. I feel like that's what side 1 would be like. And this 2 would maybe be younger rappers that he wants to kind of put his trust in to carry the mantle of hip hop forward. So,
I think Boz is going to be on this album.
Boz, I think, is an absolute lock, bro. He's a fucking
especially
lock.
That they've been aligned for so long, and he was a rapper that was extremely pushed from Cole, obviously being Eve's brother, and like them being such close friends, especially at the beginning of Cole's career, and him going to Queens, him cooking up, him working with that entire camp and building his career with those guys.
And he's also featured on the last 2 Cole albums, mightily later in the offseason.
Absolutely, both of them. I have a hot take. I also think Omen is going to have a verse on this album.
That'd be fire.
I think Omen's going to finally have a verse on a Cole album, bro, and I think it's going to be fucking crazy.
We haven't gotten it since the mixtape days.
Since the mixtape days, right? But that's like the first Dreamville artist, and that's the guy that he really started rapping with heavily at the beginning of his career. So that's another feature
that's a
prediction
good take.
for me.
West Side Gun seems to be a lock because we heard his ad-libs at the end of the album trailer on that
and he
snippet
also
for War
it,
Games.
kind of.
And he also confirmed on IG Live, he's like, who the fuck else could say that they're both on Rocky and Cole's albums?
Well, that's the paraphrase. He said he's going to be on the 2 biggest albums to start off the year.
It's also like, is it just ad-libs? Is it a verse? We'll have to wait and see. I think it could be interesting. Besides that, a big talking point for the features on this album were the Drake and Kendrick Lamar names that came up. According to Rory and Mal, both of them were featured on the Fall Off at one point in time. We do know that there were 6 versions of this album, so that theory kind of makes sense that they could have been on it at some point. And then there was also the moment in 2023, I believe, where Drake and Cole were on stage together, and Drake literally asks him, could I be on the album? And Cole says, yeah, say less.
Okay, this is what I think about that theory, okay? I feel as if you were to ask me maybe a week or 2 ago when we spoke about this, and no, there's no fucking way. Like, especially with all the politics and who has to clear their verse, who wants to hear each other's verse. I'm not going to send this until I hear this. I think, like, that's for sure, like, out the window at this point.
Yeah.
But Cole's always unpredictable with his track lists, right? So playing into this full circle moment, ending the drought, bringing peace to the jungle once again, like Lion King, and bringing back. How crazy would it be to be like one of the only rappers that could accomplish that of still having
both of them on the track
both
list?
Of them, yeah. Like, that's a Halo reach on my part, but I think maybe you see both of them.
That would be
featured.
awesome. I mean, I doubt it, but that would be fucking amazing to see, and it would be almost like a peace treaty. But I don't think that either of those like guys and their teams would be part of that shit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it depends like the way that they see it. If it's individual tracks,
for sure. I'm saying still as individual, I don't think that they'd want to be on the same album.
No, that's where this kind of gets like not hazy for me, but like I could see it happening, but I also don't see it happening, because if those verses were recorded and they were promised to Cole, And, you know, some people are saying that Cole's not on good terms with Drake and stuff like that. We know that's bullshit. Like, that's actually not a thing. I feel like looking at that scenario, you could find a way to both fit them in, and that would play into the narrative of the album about how fucking J. Cole's a peacemaker and he's going to be able to bring them both.
It would be on brand for Cole. Other pieces of evidence that we got for features. Cole said, I want to still get me a song with YB on First Person Shooter. Does he make it happen? I hope not. So. I fucking hope not, bro. Also, Rodwave teased a potential Cole collab with Complex, where he said that Cole called him up and told him to pull up on him. And then when he was asked, is this for the fall off? He said, I can't leak anything. So we might get some Rodwave on.
But you know what?
Here.
That would be a sick collaboration, because Cole has leaned into like gospel records as of late as well. I mean, looking back at Moray, for example, on My Life, like I could feel like I could see
Rodwave hook on there.
Yeah, get like a Rodwave hook on there. And it would also be, that would be a sick collaboration, bro. Like, especially vocally, I feel like Rodwave could do a lot for a track.
I have a big feeling Eminem's going to be on this album.
You think so?
And I'm not sure how to feel about it.
You've had this hunch for a long time.
I've had this hunch for a while, and I think that they've never worked together. They're both regarded as some of the best lyricists ever. You have interviews where Eminem is praising J. Cole. Obviously, Eminem is in J. Cole's top 5 all time. I think it's going to happen, bro. And there's a lot of, like, maybe it's intentional, maybe it's not. Maybe there's something behind it, or maybe it's just fan appreciation. There's a lot of Eminem fan pages pushing Cole agendas right now. There's a lot of that I'm seeing, bro.
We'll see.
I don't know. I'm just saying. I think it's gonna happen. That's another prediction. Last thing I want to touch on before we move on to producers. Cole's also been known throughout his career to put out some of his best work featureless. Is that a possibility, you think?
I don't know, bro. Like, it's a double disc album, and he's been talking a lot about obviously like Life After Death and the Biggie stuff, and obviously the Bad Boy Records theory that you had. But even going back to an old interview, bro, I don't remember the exact interview, but he was speaking about Tupac's All Eyes on Me and how he fucking carried that track list and how he absolutely loves that double disc, and he doesn't know how he carried it. But, bro, there was full of features on that double disc.
There was.
If you're doing a double disc, you need features. You need the
features. I agree. Look at Speaker Box, tons of features. Same thing with Life After Death. Like, I agree with you.
Like, you have to see it, right? So I feel if this were to be just the original track list, probably not, right? That could, like, that theory like holds a bit more weight if it's just one 17-song track list, Cole from start to finish. He's done it in the past with For Your Eyes Only 2014, and he spoke about how he wants to go back to making like that 2014 again, and how he wants to be rapping like his old mixtapes, right? But with that being said, I feel like with the double disc album and playing how it has to happen.
You have to happen. Last thing I want to say, another prediction, hidden features, bro. I think just like the off season, we won't know the features until we're in that first listen.
It's a must at this point, bro. And I feel, especially for the marketing of this album, if he were to put out a post or something through his blog with, oh, this guy's featured, this is, the fans would be like, nah, bro. Like, why are you... Like, Cole fans already want it. Like, they know it before they even get it. Like, I don't want to hear the features. I want to go into this from start to finish and have it sequenced out like a movie, bro. It's like watching a new movie in theaters for the first time, and you see that crazy cameo, bro, from an actor that you wouldn't expect, or maybe there's an old character in a Marvel movie that you wouldn't have, like, seen coming, and now he makes a grand entrance. And those big gotcha moments, I feel like, really add value to those first listening experiences, right?
They add so much hype to the album experience as a whole. But let's talk about producers, and we'll go through some of the confirmed ones and some of the speculatory ones, and then speak about who we want to see on it. So,
for sure,
Cole himself is obviously confirmed. He's produced on all of his studio albums up to this point. Diesel and Manish produced this 2-track too, so they're locked in.
They're confirmed.
The Alchemist teased producing for the Fall Off on Twitter more than once. Would love to see that after collabs like Johnny P's Caddy, Sticks and Stones. Cole also was with Conductor and Tay Keith during the Might Delete Later vlogs, and they were cooking up together.
I think that's going to be a lock.
That could be cool. Boy Wonder was also seen in the Might Delete Later vlogs when they were talking about that outro.
For an outro. And you heard that sample in the background. Yeah, gross.
Sounded great.
Yeah, that's... Okay, that's going to tie into a theory that I have at the end of this video. Okay. Actually, I have another theory.
I want to hear that. And then Vinyls, longtime collaborator for Cole, has fucking produced bangers for him. He tweeted about the Fall Off as well, so I think he's a lock. Other producers that I want to see on here, I mean, listen, bro, I would love for him to, again, tap back into his childhood, get some Dr. Dre on here, bro. I think that would be like deadly, bro. Cole over like some polished, hard-hitting, knocking drums type of Dr. Dre production. Oh my god.
You know what I would
Get some
love
West
to see?
Coast flavor.
Especially that he was such a big fan of like the Rockefeller sessions and like all of those albums. Just Blaze, bro, would be a serious producer.
That's a great fucking pull.
Like Just Blaze would be a serious producer on this, especially someone that like doesn't have too many recent credits. It would be like a novelty factor for the album. I don't think multiple tracks, but just one where you're getting this like just triumphant beat, bro. Get those signature horns in, and just to hear that Just Blaze tag, bro, that would be so gross. Another producer that I think is an absolute lock is T Minus.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that's his closest collaborator when it comes to having a producer. And I feel like he's gonna be a lock for this.
Produced on the mixtape as well. Next prediction: track list length, number of songs. Could we agree 2-6?
Yeah.
It's meant to be.
It's meant to be 13 songs
20,
each one.
Yeah, 26 tracks.
And it kind of follows like the LP split, right,
It
for
does.
the vinyl. So I think that it's gonna be that format. I think it's gonna be an hour in run length plus,
Yeah.
minimum. And I feel like you're gonna see more than one interlude. Cole's someone that loves to have interludes.
Facts.
You saw it on
The off season.
The off season, you saw it on KOD. You saw it on Born
Sideline
Sinner.
Story.
You saw it everywhere, right? And I think that it's gonna be a blend of interludes where maybe he's doing freestyle rapping, like that freestyle like theory that you had might play into an interlude, but also some narration might come in on the interlude
Facts.
side as well, and that could be a part of the album.
All right. Next one. J. Cole said that his sole goal with this album is to make it his best album. And is this going to be J. Cole's best album?
I think so, bro, because if you go through all of his studio albums and even his mixtapes, they're extremely centered around his journey as an artist and the people around him and the things that he views in life. And his writing style is extremely reminiscent of like a Nas and Eminem, and I feel like those types of rappers obviously push themselves to become these fucking megastars, bro, but there's something that those stars like didn't accomplish what Cole could accomplish here. And like, hear me out on this. And this is a theory for me. I feel like when you look at, let's say, Nas's career, when you look at Eminem, you look at a Jay, for example, they dropped all of their best albums at the beginning of their career. So I feel like he maybe wants the title of saying, I worked to get my best album to be my last.
Yeah.
It was a steady progression all the way to the top. It may have slipped out of my hands at certain points throughout my discography, but when it's all said and done, I'm going to have my best album when I'm ripe in age, when I've done it all, when I've gone through my career, and I'm going to have a send-off. Because I feel like also when you look at maybe a 3 Stacks and Outkast, people say, well, they left the game without maybe any blemishes, right? And they left the party before it was even over, and they had a graceful bow out. They released a movie soundtrack. They went into some solo stuff. It was experimental. It didn't hit the same way that the solo Outkast catalog did. But for Cole, I feel like this is something that he could hold in those top 10 conversations of like, bro, he's the only rapper that could do it, that could drop his best album at this age, bro. People argue that for Jay with 444, but when you look at the Blueprint and Reasonable Doubt, like, those are solidified,
But
right?
the Black Album, which was supposed to be his last album at one point, is arguably one of, if not his best album.
Exactly, but I think he's really going to complete that prophecy with this catalog where it's going to be a full circle moment. I'm dropping my best one as my last. And I think he's in a place right now, and you even hear it through the blogs and the interviews where he was speaking about it with KD on his podcast, you know, a couple years ago, where he feels comfortable, bro. He feels comfortable with what he's done in this rap shit. He says that he has other things that he wants to accomplish and how he still wants to be maybe a coach behind the boards for his own artists or maybe for other projects that he wants to work on. So I think that's maybe what you might see out of Cole after this.
I think what gives me so much confidence that he's going to outdo 2014 Forest Hills Drive and a For Your Eyes Only is the fact that, bro, he had so many opportunities to put this album out. Like, if you remember, in 2018, he was speaking with Angie Martinez about KOD, and he's like, yeah, fall off next year, 2019. In 2019, performs at, like, Day in Vegas. There's that huge, like, announcement that comes on the screen, the fall off with, like, the U.S. flag and the
2020.
stars. 2020, the fall off campaign. Doesn't happen. 2020, that same year, you get the checklist, you get Lewis Street with Lion King on Ice and the climb back with the fall off to come shortly. Doesn't happen, bro. Then after the offseason, you're expecting his next project, maybe a year or two from then, to be the fall off. you don't get it. You end up getting Mike the Lead later. It gets pushed back year after year. If he's taken 10 years to craft an album and he's rapping the way that he is now, where he, I think, is in the best form of his career as a songwriter, as a rapper, what's going to stop him, bro?
And I also feel like Cole is in a place where he studies the methodology, of other rappers, right? And so many different rappers have spoken about how they put like 15 years of work into their debut, and it's so hard to replicate, right? Because you put a whole life experience into one album. And we see with recent rappers how it's so hard to replicate their best because they release a year after, or they're releasing too many albums. You know, for a lot of these serious rappers and these artists, and I feel like for any creative, life experience equals art, bro. You put your life experience into the art, and then that's how you really, you know, connect with your fan base. There's relatable stuff in there. There's anecdotes that you might not have on that album if you would have waited just a year or maybe a year after. Like, bro, there's 10 years that have gone into this.
Art,
and especially considering that J. Cole is a rapper that people go into for the writing and they want to go into the messaging. It's sick to see that this has been worked on for the past 10 years, bro. It's 10 years in the making, 10 years of anecdotes, 10 years of personal stories, 10 years of high events, low events, albums that have came out, albums that have came and gone. Like, it's here, bro. Like, this is time to make it happen.
And I love that he's probably not going to be in the same conversation as some of these other greats where it's like they kept on creating and creating to a point where the fall-off narrative for them came at one point or another. Look at Lil Wayne with the Carter 6. Look at Eminem after the revival and the late 2010s, early 2020 stuff. You look at so many of these greats. Even Jay-Z faced those criticisms after like the Blueprint 3. Cole is going to go out on his own terms. And like we said, he's going to go out before he gets kicked out of the party. He's going to bow out when he's on top creatively and artistically. But last prediction is Cole retiring after the fall off, because we do have different pieces of evidence. He called the album his last in that message that came up before the Diss 2 Track 2 video, where he says, I want to do on my last what I was unable to do on my first, the last obviously being the fall off. Then he spoke about retirement with Slam Magazine in 2021 and with KD during the ETC's podcast, and he said that he's comfortable with being done with this shit. But he also said, I'm never going to say, oh, this is my last album, which he kind of did.
I think he wants to leave the door open for interpretation.
He does. And he says, I never know I'm going to feel in 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the line. But he pretty much was saying how he wants time to do other shit in his life. He doesn't want to be tied down by chasing the throne or chasing his career and all these career-oriented goals. And then he said, what's next for me music-wise, I still have a couple things I want to finish. And I think even if I were to be like, oh, I'm not going to do this shit for a while or whatever, I'll always be involved from a production standpoint because I love coaching. Yeah, man, I think that it makes perfect sense for Cole. He's a producer. He's already been cooking up beats in recent years for other rappers.
He's executive produced great albums, like so much fun for Thug. And I feel like he maybe also wants to show some range in that perspective, right? Where maybe after this, he becomes a coach for like these up and coming artists, and for these artists that maybe need a rebound, attaches his name to these projects, and you start to see tighter track lists. You start to see better curation. Maybe you see feature verses. I think that him going into that mode of coaching and really like creating a stability for a lot of different rappers in the game would be a great place for him to be in, because I feel like you're missing that godfather right now in hip-hop of someone that's able to come into an album experience and that's able to trim the fat or guide a new and up-and-coming artist how to create their best up-and-coming album. Think about like what Rick Rubin did for so many different artists. Think about what Kanye did for so many different artists. I feel like you really hit a different level when you go into that chair, bro. And now you become sort of like this Master Splinter-esque like figure, or this Master Yoda-esque figure where you know you hold all the power and you could still demolish anyone you want, but instead of using that force in like directly, you pass it on to the future generations and you help people regain that form. So I think that's a great theory. I also feel like for Cole, someone that loves the sport this much and someone that loves the craft this much, it's impossible to stay away. For example, like let's say for us, Lou, like at a certain point, I think it's safe to say we won't be sitting in this chair forever, but podcasting will always be a part of my life. There's too much emotional attachment to this conversation, to what we built. Like,
it's a passion.
Whether
sure.
you're producing them or whether, you know, you're doing A&R work and you're finding the next big one, and like you're kind of cultivating talent and you're bringing them to the forefront, you could still feel fulfilled in this lane by doing other things besides just being directly involved into it, right?
Bro, look at Ice Cube, bro. The guy's like, what, late 50s? He's still dropping albums. He loves this shit. Same with Cole. After 2014 Forest Hills Drive, he says it in The Inevitable that he wanted to take a break, but he couldn't help himself, bro.
No,
he had to start making beats
that
again.
Itch, Lou.
He got the itch, and he was gonna keep creating. So I think that it's just a case of like, you know, he's not gonna be John Jones anymore. He's not gonna go for like the championship fights. He's not gonna be on that big stage any longer for some time. I think he's gonna step back, have a more background role, you know, help his Dreamville artists emerge and, you know, help them maybe more intensely on the creative process and do all this other business shit, bro. And more importantly, focus on his family, bro. I think that's what he wants to do. I think he just wants to live his life, be a good father, bro. And he deserves a break, especially after all the fucking work that he's put in. And we're going to see that work come into fruition on February 6th, bro. It's
Absolutely.
Time.
One final prediction from me. And this is something that you've seen on previous Cole projects. I think of Note to Self, for example, on 2014. I think he's going to have a last call moment on this album.
100%.
I think there's
Great prediction.
I think there's going to be a last call type track where he explains to you everything. Where it's maybe 2-3 verses for maybe the first 4 to 5 minutes, maybe 3 to 4. I don't know the exact track length, but I think he's going to take a portion of that said track to end off the album with a monologue for the fans and for everyone that's helped him. And not in the way of Note to Self, where it's like him reading out all the collaborators, talking about thanking everyone. I think it's going to be a heart-to-heart with the fans that's going to explain everything in this album and why he did what he did over the past 10 years. I think that's going to be another lock for this track
Great
list.
take. But yeah, guys, that's going to conclude the video for today. Let us know in the comments, what do you think of these theories? What do you think of our predictions? And by the way, we didn't speak about first week sales because who gives a fuck, bro? There's more important shit at play for this Fall Off album. And I don't even think he cares about what this sells first week. I don't think he gives a shit, bro, if we're being real about this. That being said, guys, the Fall Off live album reaction, February 6th at midnight.
What a night that's going to be.
What a time to be alive. Link in pinned comment if you want to join us. It's going to be fucking crazy. And of course, more Fall Off content on the way. We're going to be dropping our first thoughts, our album review, and much more. So stay tuned for all that. We appreciate you, and we'll see you when the Fall Off drops.